I've played literally hundreds of roguelike games, and today I'm gonna rank them from the worst to the best. Well, if I did all of them, the video would be hundreds of hours long. So let me give you just the action roguelikes instead. Starting with the F tier games that you should avoid at all costs. When I first booted up Death or Treat, I expected an action roguelike where I can show off my combo skills by juggling some zombies or using ghost-themed magical spells. Instead, I was greeted by Mr. Fackerberg, the CEO of Facebook, Pumpkin Jobs that runs the music store, and of course, Mr. Joe Bite Them, the vampire. Do not fret, I just dozed off a bit. I almost uninstalled there, but I'm a patient guy, and the parodies might be a little funny later. Unfortunately, the jokes hit harder than the actual attacks. Come on, man. Imagine finding a room full of copy-pasted zombies that are the same except for their sizes for some reason, and almost none of them react to your fly swatter sword swings. I can cast spells too, but they take so long to fill up the mana bar, I forget they exist until the sound effect jump scares me to let me know that it's been filled. I only had 3 spells to choose from. 2 of them were so bad they should just be deleted from the game entirely. If you do find a monster that reacts to you, it's probably an elite that can literally one-shot you. No way did it one-shot me. I was full HP. And that may be your first death, since everything prior to that was just a walking training dummy. Dying lets you bring back loot that has been randomly dropping from monsters, but the kicker here is that you can only bring back 5 types of items. Imagine you've gone far enough in the game that you can see a number of monsters higher than 5. Now you have to choose what items to bring back. Of course, our good buddy Joe Bite Them can increase the cap if you give him the loot first. This is the final nail in the Death or Treat coffin for me. A fate of grinding currency for Joe Bite Them and Detox Bucks, which is like the Starbucks equivalent. I didn't mention that earlier. I never make it further than my first death in the game, so this one is an avoid at all costs. Now these upcoming games are also in the F tier, but they aren't avoid at all costs. They are, I highly recommend not playing them. 2 years ago, Vampire Survivors shook up gaming as a whole and spawned thousands of copycats that we like to call Survivor likes. Time Survivors is indeed a Survivors game, and no, this tier list is not full of these. However, I have to talk about Time Survivors. When I loaded this up, I knew not to take this game seriously. I mean, the About Me of the section literally says you play as Lincoln and Cleopatra to fight hordes of minions. However, I do want to play a game, and as a Survivors game, it does the bare minimum correctly, you know, spawning PNGs of monsters and letting the player kill them. Now that is the first map of the game, the most basic of Survivors formulas. Once you get past that first map, everything goes out the window, and you're either flying through Egypt or dodging dinosaurs in the Stone Age, and everything you did to beat the first map no longer works here. Visually, it's hilarious, and to someone, maybe, just maybe this is fun. But to actually play it though, the dinosaurs can't be killed and cover the entire screen because your account level is so low, you don't have the power to kill them. Egypt is an auto-scroller, like an old school Mario level, so the weapons that you have might fall to the ground and don't work in an auto-scroller. Chances are, you don't have those weapons, and the majority of people who play the game would turn it off right at this point, probably even get a refund. That is unless you farm up enough gold to level up your account. These maps feel awful to play on, and the first map is simply not interesting enough to play multiple times, so this one unfortunately is a hard pass. One of the greatest publishers in the business, Konami, turning their IP Getsu Fumaden into a Japanese ukiyo-e art style action roguelite. It's a lot of words there, but sign me up for them. Look at these monsters. Even the background has some crazy detail to it, so why do I rank it so lowly on the tier list? Well, everything not art is really rough. Whenever I play the game, I often feel like I'm walking through mud. Many of the weapons fully stop the character even in mid-air swings. There's an execute animation on each weapon, and while it's like really flashy, it brings the gameplay to a screeching halt. This becomes extra painful when you realize how absolutely massive the levels can be. So assume lots and lots of stopping of the action. Of course, you aren't forced to full clear the maps, but if you do, you'll be missing out on max HP or the ability to level up a weapon that you actually like. We also have the return of the absolutely awful farming specific monsters for their items that don't drop at 100%, and if you die, you lose all of it. So if we go down the train, who remembers how many yins and how many yangs we had? I have one right now. I had a bag of 10 holy dragon bones off the first boss. It let me keep one. However, in Getsu Fumaden, you can extract early to escape with those items. That's right, you can choose to stop playing your run, bring back all the items to base, then do the same levels all over again, the same bosses all over again, extract over and over again until you want to push your luck and go into the next biomes. Of course, there is progression to give you stats and the ability to bring back more materials if you die. Of course, that is a resource that you can lose on death as well. So I really think most people will just farm until they get bored and never actually complete the game, which kind of shows since the achievement rate for getting your first win in the game is only 20%, and that is comparing to Dead Cells, which is at a whopping 40%. It's a shame because the design team absolutely cooked with this game, but the gameplay and systems team once again forgot to make a fun video game. Now, I will let you all know there are some hot takes in my roguelite tier list. If there's any that you agree or disagree with, feel free to leave a comment down at the bottom of the video. Risk of Rain Returns actually goes down here for me, and that might be a shock to a lot of you, but hear me out on this first. First off, let me say that I do respect the game and people who consistently beat it on high difficulties. I do have a couple of wins under my belt for a few characters, but I gotta say, my first few hours of this game was some of the least satisfaction I've gotten out of a roguelike in a long time. Now, what do I mean by satisfaction? Imagine how roguelike games have to be fun enough that die and retry isn't a barrier from you playing again. For me, dying in Risk of Rain Returns is rarely gonna make me want to play the game again. Order. You're dead, lol, get wrecked. All right. It's often due to how I die. There aren't a ton of mechanics in the game that just straight out like avoid damage. So monsters like missile shooting wisps or electrified birds are really scary. Maybe due to RNG, I didn't get a single healing or shielding item to protect my health bar, so dying usually gives me nothing to learn from. On the flip side, what I can say is genuinely fun in this game is something called Providence Trials. Imagine a roguelike game where they took the best parts, whether it's the level design or the character abilities or specific builds, and the game asks you to use those to complete one challenge. Those are genuinely fun, and I think I have more hours in the Providence Trials than I do in the real game. So now we're on our D tier roguelikes. These are ones that I wouldn't outright not recommend them. There's something wrong with the game in some way. However, it's not an outright do not play this game. We'll start off with Ravenbound, an open world roguelite. Usually this premise is really hard to pull off. If you think about it, an open world like an Assassin's Creed or a Grand Theft Auto that's supposed to have random generation to it, and when you die, you have to restart. Basically, here you have objectives placed all over the map. You can go into bird form and literally fly to map markers. I think the objectives might also be randomized, so there's even hard and very hard objectives. There's even a little bit of platforming in here with grapple hooks. All some good ideas for sure. So let's move on to the gameplay. Now you can compare the gameplay to something like a Dragon's Dogma or Dark Souls. You're slashing goblins, parrying attacks, feeling like a real god gamer, right? All of that is kind of cool and there is definitely something here. So let's go on to the roguelike part. This game talks an awful lot about cards. You even have a hand and a discard pile. Basically everything you find, be it a weapon, armor, relics, it's all a card. And cards need mana to use them. This is where things turn ugly because the game is wholly dependent on your ability to get mana. There is some guaranteed mana on the map, otherwise it's RNG to pick it up as a card. Oh my god, we found the mana. Holy, 4 mana. Hang on, this is huge. Increase posture impact for forceful, play it, then duplicate it. Oh my god, it just gives you a copy. I thought it played it for free. I oftentimes found myself getting a really cool item or synergy early on that costs a lot of mana to equip, and then never get that mana to realize my ultimate dream. Outside of that, the combat and gameplay is kind of a janky good time. Would I say I had fun? I can legitimately say that was more fun than Death or Treat. Stinkiest is one of the first games that a dev reached out to me to play, so it holds a special place in my heart. You play as the good but clueless pretty boy magician, just trying not to get killed by the bumbling evil magician. What's the roguelike premise, you may ask? Well, as a magician, every card is a spell card, and each spell card can augment every other spell card. This sounds cool, right? Might even lead to some high IQ warlock spell crafting. Unfortunately, the spells don't go all that deep. From the 17 hours I have in this game, the augment system never gets any more sophisticated than one card augments one card. In fact, if you have 2 cards with the same name, they'll have the same augment even if they're different levels. That giga brain fantasy of one card exploding into multiple things or spell domino effects from one enemy to the other, that all fades away. Then the final nail in the coffin is the difficulty curve of this game. And trust me, I love playing roguelikes at max difficulty, but I even found that by the second difficulty, I'm getting stomped before I even reach the first boss. And since the spell crafting isn't that robust, I couldn't creatively beat the game either. So at that point, I just stop and I have to move on. Ember Knights is another game that I'm sure I'll get a lot of comments about. Once again, another beautiful roguelite game, and the pixel art, that's my jam for sure. It also has co-op, so I bet the game is even better with the homies. Solo, however, I just do not want to play this game. Anytime I remember Ember Knights, all I can think about are the first 2 bosses. They are so bland that I would rather fight normal enemies than do these boss fights. If you ever played the game even one time, every boss until the 3rd biome, which is Halloween Town or whatever, you can probably do it hitless with your eyes closed. For me, in a game that's supposed to be replayable, that's pretty bad. I will give the game some credit though, the weapons and skills are pretty snappy and have some nice visuals to it. I also know the game released DLC recently that looks even more action-packed than the base game, and maybe that's where the true fun is. However, I can't stand to play the base game, so I have to rate it there. Alright, we're about halfway through D tier. I'm gonna give you all just a quick bonus game in 30 seconds or less. Myth Force. It's promised to be like a Saturday morning cartoon roguelike 4-player co-op. When me and my buds over at Wholesomeverse played it, it was completely buggy. We were either falling through the floor or enemies couldn't be killed. Hopefully that stuff has been fixed by now, but that was in the D tier for me. Summon Eterna is a classic 2D action roguelike where you find randomized weapons, you try to buff them in a way that gives you big damage. Despite being 2D, the gameplay is pretty one-dimensional. You just smack the monster and boost your damage to smack them even harder. There's not really any other buttons that you need to press besides jump, dodge, and smack. Like every roguelite, you'll get currency to boost your weapons and equipment. Nothing new here, but I'm gonna blow you away with this one. and tell you that the whole game is about farming currency. You see, they actually have a pretty genius stage select system where you find and fuse seeds, and each seed is literally the run that you're gonna play out. They get pretty interesting. The better the seed, the more content you can do, and the more loot you can get to power yourself up to do, you guessed it, more seeds. So while all this sounds pretty good, the only real negative to the game is how janky it is. The character animations aren't super great, and the monster AI is often unresponsive again. Some of the weapons are really underpowered, boss attacks are often unreadable or really don't do anything at all. And don't get me wrong, I do think that this is not supposed to be taken super seriously. The devs have tons of jokes in the game and references everywhere, and I actually really like that. So if you ignore the jank, then you probably are left with a pretty interesting roguelike mechanic of seed crafting. Wizard of Legend 1, one of the GOATs of the roguelike industry. It's a high action game with really cool looking spells and even has some co-op to it. But for me, I actually can't stand playing this game. Even now, I can already imagine how a run would go. I'll start my run by grabbing some lightning spells and a starting relic. The game lets you choose amongst basically every relic in the game, and I have zero idea why you wouldn't just choose the S tier every single time. Then the first map will be a earth map or a lightning map, both of which are resistant to my spells because I started with lightning, so I guess I already misplayed there. I get to my first normal monster and I have to wait my turn unless I have the stun them all button or the I'm invincible button because they are constantly attacking me. Once I get to a boss, the game almost turns into a turn-based game where they specifically play out their turn, then they stand still for some reason, letting me play my turn. You can say that a Souls-like does the same thing, but in Wizard of Legend, I have a whole kit with multiple spells, and I feel like I'm not allowed to use them until it's my turn to play. The sequel to this game is currently in mixed on Steam, and I think I'd rather play that than original Wizard of Legend. Neon Abyss, one of the best twin-stick shooters on the market, or one of the worst on the market, depending on who you talk to. You drop into an afterlife club or something and you battle... No, I never really questioned what the monsters were that you fight against. Anyway, you shoot your way through the game, pretty simple, and in some ways perhaps too simple, really, because the answer to every situation is either more bullets or bigger bullets. Not really much else. With a system like this, you can really just pick up any relic or any power-up you find, because bigger and better are generally the only bonuses that you're gonna find. As you unlock more content, the fun of the game starts, which is gambling and mini-games. It may be a literal roulette machine. Was that more money that I put in? I don't think it was. I think that was a nickel. Or fishing, or even DDR, Dance Dance Revolution, all of which is to roll for another gun or another relic. And if you fail, it feels awful, because you just gambled away all your money for no reason. Now that I think about it, this and a lot of the features in Neon Abyss almost feel like they were tacked onto the game. There's one other weird mechanic, which is an egg system, where you get pets that follow you and provide effects and damage. Why we get eggs that spawn CEOs, robots, the Joker, I actually have no idea. Some of them can actually get you killed by exploding, and some are stealing money from you. If you know Neon Abyss, feel free to let us know in the comments what the eggs have to do with the game's story. I mean, besides that, gameplay-wise, I guess the game's not bad, at least compared to twin-stick shooters as a whole. I can't see. Chat, we made a mistake. I can't see anymore. But I'd probably rather play other twin-stick shooters than Neon Abyss. Alright, we're now moving into C tier. These are games that, you know, I actually like. My only issue is either you don't go very far in the game and you'll stop relatively early, or there is still like fundamentally something wrong with the game that makes it kind of a one and done situation. Dreamscaper is a pretty ambitious action roguelike. Basically, your character has lucid dreams, and her dreams are the actual roguelike run. Outside of sleeping, she is a new resident in a town. The devs were actually really smart about this, where the NPCs are actually your meta progression, the way you get stronger for the roguelite. Your relationship status with the NPCs give you stats like critical hit rate, attack speed, and I'm not really sure if I've seen that in any other game. In town, you craft art projects that become the weapons and the relics in the run. Basically, the character is literally dreaming up the weapons that she's gonna use in her sleep. Huge props for all of this. However, the combat flow of the game, the sound effects, the music, it's all a little sleepy, for lack of a better term. It isn't really an easy game. It does require some real effort to play, but maybe it doesn't fire off enough neurons for me to hold my attention. Sakurai, the developer of Super Smash Bros., talks a lot about big moments and how to highlight those. I think that's what's missing about Dreamscaper's content. It's not boring. Some may even call this a cozy game, but in this genre, I really like to challenge myself and show off like actual mechanical skill. Risk of Rain 2, one of the most played action roguelikes currently on Steam. As a party game, it's probably one of the best games on the market. You know what I mean by a party game, something that you can turn on with the buddies and spam hours worth of runs and have a generally good time. There's even enough characters and maps to make for a good variety. So my only real problem with the game is the roguelike part itself. Basically, Risk of Rain 2 is a game of incremental, almost infinite-ish scaling. You might find the coveted 5% critical hit rate relic. The fun part of the game is when you stack 10 of these to skyrocket your crit rate. Is it really build making if the loot boxes scattered around the area just happen to have crit relics in it? Or a 3D printer shows up that lets you trade all your items for the crit relic? Pretty much every relic behaves this way, but I never really considered changing my gameplay because a certain relic showed up. Even a lot of the super rare relics don't give you that sense of, oh, I got this, so I should really think about optimizing it. But I feel like most of the game can be solved by simply picking up everything you see without really thinking. And not thinking is probably the best part of any good party game. 20 Minutes Till Dawn is our other survivors like. And again, this tier list is not full of these, don't worry. What separates this game from the others is you're a bit more active during the gameplay. You do the shooting, the reloading, and the gunplay stats actually matter for your build. With enough enemies culled, you can choose from a skill tree where you get greeted by some of the coolest things in this game, tags. The skill tree is full of stuff like every reload increases your attack speed, and that will lead to every reload enhances shots for X amount of time. And the taglines are basically reload as a term, and the game will offer you different enhancements for the tag called reload. So reloading could cause a lightning strike, or reload pushes enemies away. So you can see how build making becomes a bit more fleshed out than the classic survivors. There's also multiple characters and guns that you can choose from, and you can make some pretty exotic interactions between these. Really, the only bad part about the game is that some of the characters and guns are just not that fun to play with as compared to other stuff. For example, take a crossbow that fires one shot. Probably not as cool as a machine gun that spawns ghosts on every bullet you fire. Either way, it's a $5 game. I don't really regret buying it, and I'm sure you don't either. But I do find myself no longer playing it after winning a few runs. Alright, we're about halfway through C tier stuff, so here's another bonus game in under 30 seconds. Going Under. My favorite soundtrack of pretty much any roguelike game. One of my favorite stories of any roguelike. It's really millennial-based humor, which I actually like a lot. It just is a one and done, so after you beat it the first time, that's basically it. But it's worth a play in my opinion. Eyes in the Dark is a unique twist on the twin stick shooter. All enemies have to be killed by light, so your gun is a flashlight. Get it, roguelite? By default, imagine the flashlight is just a glorified flamethrower, and the perks that you get, as well as the augments, show different examples of light physics. The story and art is actually really good, probably the best part of the whole game. So here, the big issue of the game is fighting against basic monsters. For the most part, everything is either a roach, or a fly, or some other kind of bug. This goes on for quite a while, possibly even too long before the monsters become like really more interesting. Using the flashlight to cut through darkness in order to go through the maps, it's a neat concept, but every time I have to sweep through the darkness, it feels like a chore. Like I'm literally vacuum cleaning the mansion like an unpaid butler. There's also some balance issues and blind spots that weren't really resolved. For example, a shop could have duplicate items in it, which would really never happen in the finished game. It's probably a fun one and done, but I don't think I can see myself or really anyone else running multiple playthroughs of this after they clear the story. Blade Assault is one of those action roguelikes that, dang, I wish it played half as well as it looks. One of the major problems with this game is the elemental boon system. I call it boons because it reminds me a lot of Hades, where you buff your attack, your dodge, your special, with one of various elements. In this game, it's 3 elements, and not gonna lie, 3 elements is basically nothing for a roguelike nowadays. And these are, of course, the most cookie cutter power-ups you could possibly imagine. You add fire to your attacks to burn, ice to your attacks to chill, lightning to your attacks for crit, and no real interactions between these to make you use your brain. The boon system basically plays itself. With one major mechanic already in the trash can, let's move on to character enhancements. The character's weapon can be enhanced with new abilities, and this is actually a very cool mechanic. Imagine that you're playing Zet, the brawler who specializes in shielding and rocket punches. You can enhance Zet by giving him a counter stance whenever he does his shield, or extra damage when he dashes through enemies. Pretty cool stuff, but I don't think he has really all that many enhancements, so you'll probably see all of them very quickly. The main character, however, Kill, has 3 different weapons, all of which have their own enhancements, and no other character in the game has this. In fact, development for this game has stopped, and the team is currently working on Dragon is Dead, which is a different roguelike game. We'll never see the same amount of weapons and passives among all the characters. That's a real shame because I find them to be a lot more interesting than the base character. Alright, I got another good one for you all. Hitman 3 changed his name to Hitman World of Assassination in order to sell some kind of live service game or something. None of that matters, it's kind of strange, but what we're really here for is Hitman Freelancer, the roguelike experience. It's actually criminal, no pun intended, on how fun this game is.
Welcome to Whittleton Creek. Intel tells us that the operative syndicate
What in the
members are
world?
currently in the area. Track them down and do what you do best.
Basically, you load up a random Hitman 3 map with a random starting loadout, and you try to kill the NPCs that spawned, you guessed it, randomly across the map. What makes it fun is that the game tries to offer you objectives to kill them in specific ways, and any mistakes that you make could cost you the entire run. Great experience that engrossed me and my wife for about 20 hours until you start to realize, barring the style objectives, you'll probably kill every target the easiest way possible every single time you play the game. The map's layout itself is not randomized, so you'll quickly learn that the blueprint of the area kind of breaks the whole randomized experience. The game tries to spawn things like cameras in random locations to balance this out, or guards that patrol in random areas, but really gaining knowledge in this game kinda ruins the overall fun factor faster than it should. However, if you do play the game, I almost promise you it's gonna be fun for at least the first few hours. Before we move into the B tier, Have you all had surprises yet? B-tier games are all basically good games. I would genuinely play them right now. It's just that there's probably something else better that I'd rather spend my time on. Have a Nice Death is one of the first action roguelikes post Dead Cells that I played, and I was like, wow, this is the one. The art is fantastic. The story direction is great. They pumped lore into every monster, every spell, everything. And there's actual roguelike build making. It has all the marks to put this in the S tier, except for one. And that's the difficulty system and the true ending. Unlike games like Isaac and Risk of Rain, action roguelikes often live and die by this one question: what happens after your first win? The difficulty system as a whole is similar to Dead Cells' boss cell system, but on steroids. There are 15 difficulties that you have to climb through one by one, and some of these have the most ridiculous modifiers I have ever seen. Since 1.0 release, there's actually been multiple changes, buffs, and nerfs to the difficulty system. It's probably more feasible to run this at high level nowadays, but when I played it, it was actively anti-fun to play this game after you get the true ending. Essentially, monster damage and monster health goes way up, player damage goes way down, almost to the point where certain power-ups are actually worthless to pick up. So it's like you're playing a worse version of the game the higher the difficulty goes up. Have a Nice Death also has a true boss, and to be fair, it's actually a really cool true boss, but also fighting it kinda sucks. Well, the concept of the boss is great, but getting to it sucks because you have to jump through hoops similar to those who have played Slay the Spire. Then fighting the boss is even worse than the hoops that you jump to get there. Those who know about the fight, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Without spoiling too much, I think it's supposed to be an optional final test of the build. I've done it once, and I don't want to do it again because only certain builds can really do it consistently. Cult of the Lamb, another genius design in roguelites. And don't let people fool you, this is truly a roguelite experience with tons of elegant solutions to present progression differently. But before I talk about that, let's talk about the action part. At its base form, I will say it's nothing spectacular. It may even be the worst part of the game. You have a weapon and a spell, and you fight enemies, and that's about it. Eventually, you'll collect cards and relics that will augment what you already do. Imagine things like do more damage, get more life, do this thing faster than you could before. Nothing really groundbreaking here, no real build making, I would say. The real genius of this game is their solution to the boring roguelite systems of spending coins on a menu, and that is the cult simulator. Basically, you need cult members, and that's your currency. Every member gives you faith, and you'll then spend that faith to augment your cult. With enough faith, you can unlock stronger weapons, spells, and relics, so long as you can maintain that cult. Every dungeon run that you do rewards you with materials, and sometimes even the followers themselves, that fuel the cult. So in a way, many people will say that you're doing too much cult management, but in reality, both pieces feed into each other and make for like the overall experience of Cult of the Lamb. I will say, yes, you will be doing mandatory cult management. It is just as much a part of the game as the action part is. But I can see that as a major detriment to a lot of action roguelite fans. 30XX is probably the best Mega Man style roguelite on the market. There aren't many of them because it's a hard style to get right. Mega Man by default is a simple game where the only real powers you get are boss abilities that you need to use to fight the next boss. A roguelite needs a bit more character changes or else it would be boring. So 30XX tries to take every single mechanic in Mega Man and make power-ups for those. So you got jump height, double jumps, slide distance, speed, charge attacks, bullet direction, bullet frequency. Almost everything you can think of is a power-up in 30XX. All good stuff. So where this falls off a bit is really where every other Mega Man might fall off, and that's fighting bosses. For those who don't know, one of the most popular Mega Man games, Mega Man X, has 9 bosses in it. And you play through the game like you would as a campaign. It's like a story. 30XX also has 9 bosses as well, with true endings and all the cool stuff you could expect in a roguelite. And maybe you're not expected to do that all in one run. The runtime, in my opinion, is way too long. Not something that you can really do in one sitting. Now, when I play a roguelite game, I like to play them in one sitting because all of that dopamine I'm getting is like all at the same time. So to play it at a different day, sometimes those power spike moments I got get lost because that cool part was done yesterday. Again, it's a great game, probably another good one and done, but I feel like I can't replay it a lot because it just takes up so much of my time. Rogue Legacy 2, the quintessential roguelite game. That's roguelite with a T. Die and get stronger and repeat this ad nauseum. Nauseum like nausea. That's the game. If you don't know Rogue Legacy, the premise of the game is that you take one randomly generated character and you go through rooms in order to fight bosses. The characters have quirks like colorblindness, short stature, even dyslexia. In reality, that is like just a small part of the game, and building a character from items you find in the run is also like a generally small part of the game as well. The real game is this thing, the castle, the meta castle. You see, the real goal of Rogue Legacy is to farm gold to power up this castle, and powering it up is almost near infinite. You can beat every challenge in this game by throwing gold into the castle until you're over geared, and then you just bulldoze through whatever difficulty you're on until you move up in difficulty. The game catches up to you, and now you need to buff your gear up even more. If you like this kind of system, the game is actually great. For me, I have a few wins. I think the true ending is on New Game +7. I believe I'm on +4 right now. And they even added a new mode called True Rogue Mode, which is probably one of the hardest things I have done in roguelikes, period. Overall, I would say everything is done relatively well in the game, except for making a roguelike character. All the spells and relics and stuff like that, like you do make decisions on what to take, but I feel like nothing really makes you feel OP or something. I still have to actually play the game as normal, unless I'm overgeared with money. So we're about halfway through the B tiers, so it's time for, once again, another honorable mention. Despot's Game. So this is probably not a game that I could spend a lot of time on, because again, it's just so long to do it. However, the ending to Despot's Game is, it may be spoiler, so I'm gonna avoid saying it, but it flips the game upside down and makes it like truly really interesting. I wish I could do that more often or faster, but I do feel like it's actually like really fun to do that even just the one time. Now, Spiritfall, unlike anything you've seen before, is a platform fighter action roguelite. Think Super Smash Bros. Or Multiverse. That is a platform fighting game. You choose a weapon that has a specific moveset to it, all of which you would expect to see in a fighting game. Up attacks, down attacks, charge attacks, juggles, combos, all of that stuff. It has it all. And the best part is that all of these fighting game mechanics can be augmented with god boons and relics. Don't let the boons fool you into thinking it's just another Hades clone though. Most of the actual influences on how you do your combos or where your damage comes from is from the boons. You could play it like any other action roguelite, giga buff one thing and just spam the game, or you could really immerse yourself in that platform fighter with wall splats, spikes, wave dashing, edge guarding, flotation, all of which is buffed in some way by either the relics or the boons you've picked up. It's actually great. My only issue with the game is that once you beat the game 1 or 2 times per weapon, you may have seen a majority of what you should be doing with that weapon. Don't get me wrong, it is fun for sure, and I can see myself loading up the game right now, grabbing a weapon that I enjoy, and then just doing a run with it. However, I'm probably gonna play that run and weapon the same way I have been playing it, because I don't know if I can find any other way to play that weapon. Oblivion Override, the classic action roguelite of exploring this like gigantic map, fighting enemies along the way with specific weapons and special abilities. If it was just this, the game would probably get old really fast. Instead, the game went with this cool XP system, and as you gain experience, you spend it on the roguelike part. There's a pick 3 that'll show up. You get buffing your crit rate, adding shielding on kills, summoning drones that attack enemies. There's even augments for your own character's special abilities, all due to killing the enemies on the map and getting experience. I feel like the devs got all of this part right. The game is smooth, the art is fantastic. My only problem with it is that some of the balance is way off between the different characters that you can use, and even some of the augments from leveling up. In some ways, one character can be considered easy mode in this game, and another one is torture mode. The game also allows you to ban certain things from showing up when you level up. There's also lots of rerolls, so you can usually force a build to show up every time you play the game, and for me, that's actually a big no-no. I'm not a fan of forcing certain builds in really any roguelike game. I would find myself loading the game up and having my viewers from either YouTube or Twitch tell me, hey, ban these things, pick that thing, and you'll probably win. And you know what? They're right, I will probably win. But my overall favorite part about roguelike games is finding something and then deciding to like change my gameplay to fit that. Oblivion Override has that in your first playthroughs, but once you start to, understand the mechanics of it, then you'll really just go for the tried and true safe option every time. All right, this is a big one. This one might get me a lot of the comments that I'm worried about, but Brotato is one of the games that I truly don't know where to put it on this list. I respect it enough to consider it in the S tier, but whenever I play the game and I lose, just like Risk of Rain Returns, I get zero satisfaction from losing. I don't think my issue is with the horde survival genre in general, because I do enjoy these games. Basically, mobs of enemies come at you and you have to like outscale them. I don't think the power scaling is my issue either. This is a game where every power-up you get has some kind of detriment, so you're like building up one stat while like dunking down another stat. Maybe my problem with the game is fulfilling the fantasy of each character. Brotato has a ton of characters in it, all of which have their own perks and downsides. Some of them want to see certain stats like elemental damage, engineering, primitive weapons, etc. And I think when these don't show up, the run just isn't fun for me. My character, in my opinion, doesn't work properly, and that makes it feel awful. This could be a get good situation or something, but I just feel like I don't enjoy trying to force my character to do whatever its overall job was. So when I get towards the end of the game, I just get blown up by the last 1 or 2 waves without really knowing what went wrong there. Is there a world where like I don't know if I like Brotato that much? Like, I respect it. It does some like really good things, and maybe like it's a good time sink. Like you can put a lot of time into it and get a lot of reward out of it for only $3 or whatever the price is. It's something very, very cheap. In terms of like, would I want to play Brotato right now? I think I'd rather play something else. The only thing I have to worry about is these 10,000 people right here. Like, how do I explain that to what I'm doing, which is next game in it? All right, here comes another tough one. Enter the Gungeon, probably one of the best-selling roguelikes of all time. Every character, every boss, everything is designed to its fullest to embody the goal of Gungeon, and that is everything is gun-related. And they nailed that. So much so that a lot of Gungeon's enemies are even featured on a website called Bullet Hell Database. If the tier list was strictly about design, this game would be triple S tier. Unfortunately, it's not, so let me talk about what I don't like about Gungeon. First off, as a twin-stick shooter, the guns are great. And for a gun about games, this is probably enough to be high tier But for a roguelike, I just pick up every gun, check if it's strong, and use it if it's good. Sometimes 2 guns or a gun plus a relic will fuse together and make some kind of synergy, and that's cool, I guess. I never really searched these out, so unless it shows up by surprise, I think nothing of it. Most of the relics I come across are a little one-dimensional as well. Armor's better, dodge rolling is better, flip a table and it does something. Whenever I play Gungeon, or hell, if I even watch someone play Dungeon, I feel like there's no decision making there. You'll know you got a good gun because the game gave you a pretty little rainbow chest and a gun inside. You know that the gun's good, so you're just gonna use it and refill it with ammo. That's the whole game, I think. Now, there is such thing as player performance-based games, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm over here looking for a roguelike decision-making where maybe you don't use a certain gun because it's anti-synergy with the relics I have, or you got a relic so you're gonna pick up a gun that you normally don't use because now all of a sudden it's great with those relics. But I feel as though Gungeon is purely about how well you can play and did you find high tier stuff. So the next games coming up, these are all A tier games. These are games that are like near perfect. I mean, they aren't in the S tier because there may be some issue with it. I will recommend to basically anyone who asks me, give me a roguelike that I've never heard of before. Raven's Watch is probably in my top 3 favorite games to just load up right now. Even though some of the characters have a small amount of viable builds, it's one of the roguelikes where the playthrough itself is almost the most entertaining part. You choose a character that you want to play, the game teases a direction on where you can build into, and then it's my job, or your job, to pilot that character through all the twists and turns, the drama that happens during the game, and from point A, being the start of the game, to point Z, being the end of the run, the structure of that run is pretty much the same every time. That may be a red flag to some of you. It's about as fun as playing, let's say, your favorite childhood comfort game like a Mario 64, or for me, a Sonic Adventure 2 for the 50th time. You know basically how it's gonna go, but because this is a roguelite, you have the added twist that the character's abilities are gonna be different, and when you die, it's because you made too many bad calls. Raven's Watch itself is still getting updated, so some of that sameness I think is getting resolved by further randomizing which objectives will show up and which ones simply won't. Astral Ascent is probably the most well-made action roguelite platformer on the market. What I mean by platformer is that jumping is actually required gameplay, and some of the fighting will get you killed if you hyper-focus on simply dodge rolling. The action's super snappy and requires a little bit of brain usage, and it's not mindless button pressing. There's also build creation that makes for its own YouTube videos. YouTuber face not included. They have a lot of bells and whistles in this, including voice acting, deep lore, and co-op. For some people, I've been told that the graphics are a bit weak, even though the cutscenes in this game have some of the best pixel art I have ever seen. But for sure, maybe the in-game character design doesn't show enough detail for you. I've also seen people complain about square peg in the square hole build making. Imagine a toy where you drop pegs into the matching holes. The argument is that you simply win by matching your fire spell with the fire gambit and the fire augments, and there's no creativity there. And then finally, I've seen some people complain about the amount of effects on the screen. Wins are often due to a busted build, so yes, sometimes my screen is full of slimes, or blades, or I'm teleporting around, etc, etc. Couple that with all the enemy effects, and maybe my character is blended together with all of those other pixels. Luckily for me, none of that stuff is really an issue that affects my enjoyment of the game, but I do respect those opinions enough to keep this only in the A tier. Alright, another good one for you all. This actually may be the only tier list that rates Warm Snow this highly. If there was ever such thing as a Chinese roguelite, it's this game right here. That may sound like an insult, but I promise you that it's not. The Eastern devs have rewrote the book on what it means to have an ability and an effect. The average sword or relic has at least one paragraph of text to read if you want to maximize its effects. It's like those anime characters where their quirk needs half an episode to explain. Some may find this as a flaw, but the game is truly a power fantasy that goes beyond plus 10 damage or 5% attack speed. The game eventually evolves, or should I say devolves, into the character becoming a ball of sword slashes or a giant beam of energy, and nothing in the game usually can resist that. If your build isn't quite set up, the game feels really way overtuned and everything just murders you on the spot. I don't know how the balance team figured this out. I assume that most people who don't make it very far in Warm Snow didn't have a busted build. Or on the flip side, maybe someone out there stopped playing the game because they felt so strong that they already assumed that they're gonna win before even leaving that footprint in the Warm Snow in the first place. Oh, I should also mention that some of the best gameplay and the true ending is behind paid DLC, so that's a little bit of a problem. Also, some of the scenes in the game may be too gross for some folks, and as far as I know, there's no option to blur or censor. Outside of that, Warm Snow is another game that I could turn on and play right now. Skull the Hero Slayer, what some people call the spiritual successor to Dead Cells. It has a unique mechanic that I've not seen in any other roguelike, where you have a moveset depending on 2 skulls that you put on your head. Each skull is inspired by legendary creatures, warriors, there's some joke characters, there's even characters from other games, but trust me, this game is no joke. The story is decently compelling. It's just a few cutscenes, but I do like it. The gameplay is another power fantasy where you do the biggest or the fastest hit possible to keep up with the humans' power scaling. Sorry, I should have mentioned that in Skull, the humans are the enemy. I find that the game to be incredibly difficult as well, but strangely enough, the difficulty system in this game is probably one of the single best ascension systems on the market. You'll probably lose your first run, but each death teases you with a different skull, and that may be the one that you fall in love with. As the difficulty goes up, they throw harder challenges at you, but then they offer you a new mechanic to solve that problem. It's so good, I honestly wish every action roguelike followed that system instead of just make the game harder. Really, my problem with the game is the balance between the skulls themselves, as well as the game's own swap mechanic. Where's the damage? Even though a lot of the game is based around switching between the 2 skulls you have, that's what we call as a swap, many of the skulls actually get weaker if you swap. You'll find yourself needing to either flat out ignore this feature or hyper focus on swapping, as these are 2 distinct playstyles. I also find that dodging attacks in this game is also pretty awful, and that's really on like 50% of the skulls that exist in the game. Not because there's too much stuff to dodge, but rather the dodge roll actually sucks on power skulls and some balance skulls, the third one being speed skulls. Coincidentally enough, that's the best at dodge rolling. Power skulls can also be so big that dodge rolling may actually put you into more danger than just standing there. But regardless of that, I'm pretty sure I've named off so many more positives than negatives that this is an easy A tier. But some people, probably S. Again, we reached the halfway point, so it's time for a bonus game, Atomicrops. They actually put every fiber of the game, fiber is a pun by the way, you have a farm. The farm is your base. You need to go and collect ingredients in order to fuel your score to buy more stuff. Buying stuff are like your artifacts and guns to fight bosses. They're actually bosses for the farm. I understand it to be very hard, and I don't have a lot of hours in it. All right, next up, another banger. You all may not know about this one. Curse of the Dead Gods, still one of the best curse systems on the market. You know how roguelites love to do stuff like take more damage and get more damage taken, or open a chest but you'll die on the next hit. It's all just punishment, nothing to really spin that hamster wheel in your skull. In Curse of the Dead Gods, however, each curse is a debuff on the character, sure, but they usually come with some component that you can actively engage in. For example, light is a major mechanic, like literally illuminating a dungeon, that kind of light. Fire and burning attacks obviously create light, and monster behavior might change when it's illuminated. You could even have a relic that gives you damage while you're in the light. But what if a curse meant perpetual darkness? Well, that's not all bad, because you could actually build towards having bonus damage while in the dark. Or maybe you got a curse that gives you less stamina. With that, you might take every kill gives you back more stamina, or another relic can actually give you permanent crits while you don't have stamina. Finally, the dungeon design is actually brilliant. After picking a route on the standard UI that you all know and love, you go through a temple with real rooms, traps, secrets, the whole 9 yards. It's a very immersive experience, though it's a bit of a short-lived one. You'll probably be done with this once you get your true ending, since there's not really a lot of content aside from the run itself. If any roguelike devs are out there, look at this game as inspiration to whatever you're trying to build. Here it is, Vampire Survivors, the $3 time killer that blew up the scene and paved the way for thousands of copycats. Other games did bullet heaven ideas before this, but Vampire Survivors figured out how to nail the dopamine hit every time you load it up. Either it's the animations like the chest opening explosions, or getting an evolved version of a weapon. And the game has only gotten better over time. In the beginning, it was simply fighting PNGs that do nothing at all, and now they're up to a Ode to Castlevania DLC, which is, with no spoilers, practically Vampire Survivors 2. At this point, there's now objectives on the map, characters and modes to unlock, new power-ups and synergies that you'll unlock over time. It's so much more now than just going AFK with an aura that kills everything that walks into it, though you can still do that. I'm not really willing to toss this into the S tier because I think there was a huge missed opportunity on what you could do with the gold that you collect in your run. It's got some of that like bland roguelike power-up stuff, attack speed, move speed. Eventually you get some other ways to spend gold, but I think they could have really doubled down on gold being a central part of normal gameplay. This one may come as a surprise. Hades. For some people, this is their first true roguelite game, and what a hit it was. It's got the graphics, it's got voice acting, it's got accessible gameplay that new folks can hop into. To keep doing run after run, they made one of the best carrots on the stick to keep you trotting along, dangling Zagreus' story just out of reach. As a fresh install, and after your first couple of wins, the runs themselves are still really great, but then we have to beat the game 10 times for true ending, while climbing difficulties at the same time. Okay, bet. The first runs were great after all. Unfortunately, by a certain hour of playtime and difficulty increases, I think the enjoyment begins to drop further and further. You're probably doing the same thing and seeing the same enemies, because the difficulty system just needs you to pump up their life just a little bit, or maybe a couple more monsters, and I think that leads to boredom. But then eventually, you discover extreme measures, and all of a sudden, wow, the game's great again. The bosses have changed, and maybe even some of the monsters have new effects to them. You're gonna start climbing further into difficulties. You got those 10 wins, and now you're left climbing if you really want to play more. Now all of a sudden, subpar builds that used to get you by now lose their viability. You start running into the same builds over and over again. Mostly the fault of the Hades keepsake system, which lets you force the starting god that shows up for every run. Pump the difficulty up beyond that, and the game gets even worse. Not really because the game is too hard, but rather your odds of winning become more and more RNG reliant. Not to say that RNG is a bad thing in a roguelike game, but you could straight up lose because this little sack decided to show up as late as possible. My enjoyment curve is why I don't really have Hades 1 in the S tier. Hades 2, however, that's moving in the right direction. We can't rate it until 1.0, but I'm very anxious to see where this thing's gonna lie. Alright, we're reaching the home stretch for S tier games. These are almost perfect with some kind of flaw here and there, I'm sure. But it's a game that I will always recommend, almost every single time. Gunfire Reborn is the other king of Chinese roguelikes. Again, not an insult. You have to understand what that means, which is them reaching their goal. On the surface, the game is just an FPS roguelike. So usually it's about landing shots and the bullets do something special. But thanks to these devs and their paragraph-long effects, the real fun of Gunfire is trying to find interactions between everything the game offers in order to make a cohesive, game-winning build. Yes, there is a gun, for sure, but you can't simply win by shooting. The gun might have an effect if your second gun has a matching tag, the character has abilities, and you can augment those abilities. You will pick up relics, and those have their own effects. Then you can spend currency to lock in 3 perks that buff either your character or your gun. And there's probably some more effects that I can't even remember right now. It's basically a huge interlacing puzzle where you don't just want to shoot a gun, you want to break rules and activate God mode or something. Plus, they do have weird seasonal content with more experimental buffs for your character that I don't even know if they're good. It's more stuff on top of the system that already works. It's one of the true busted build maker fantasies out there, and I'm sorry if you want to show off your FPS tournament level skills, but you'll have to play a different game for that. I should also mention that the game does have a lack of alternate stages. It does have alternate game modes, however. The standard run, you won't really see a lot of variation to the levels themselves. It's really the character that you take in that's gonna change the gameplay. Of course, the Binding of Isaac remothered after Ken. I don't really know which one that I'm doing the tier list for, but it's just Binding of Isaac as a whole, I guess. On the surface, it looks like an old school Flash game, which is probably a selling point for some people. But Ed and the team working on this made such a deep product that just continues to ooze out progression with its multiple characters and multiple endings, so long as you continue to unlock the bajillion achievements in this game. In fact, you may not even be able to play this game blind. I dare say that this is maybe a Wikipedia game, not just because there's hundreds of items with 0 descriptions until you pick them up and experiment. Every time I stream Isaac, I have to ask my chat, what should I be doing? Or else I'll easily get stuck with 0 progression. Luckily, there's always someone who knows what to do, or maybe they're just looking it up for me. Even the weapons sometimes require a peek at a spreadsheet, because almost every item in the game will have an interaction with other items, some of which is really cool. You could be firing 20 laser beams in every direction, causing ripples in space that will just delete monsters. Or on the flip side, you might just blow yourself up and lose the run. Yes, there is an item out there that the effect will be blow yourself up because of the right synergy, or perhaps anti-synergy. Either way, no other game has this, so easy S tier. Alright, shoutouts if you know this one. One Step from Eden, one of my absolute favorite roguelike games, and if you hate it, then that's okay. I'm perfectly okay with it being my game only. You might look at this and think, ah yes, another deck builder. But it's not. This game is truly an action game at its heart. I mean, you gotta lock in with this grid, as every move is potentially death if you screw it up. Each enemy has its own attack patterns, and like any good action game, as you learn the patterns and boost your reaction time, the better the game looks. But I do have to stop there because I need to weave in the actual card part so you really understand how the combat works. For sure, it is a deck builders, kinda, in the sense that you draw a card, play it from your hand, and then it goes in the discard pile. In reality though, you have to do all of that in real time on top of the grid-based gameplay. All these cards synergize with each other and create some really sophisticated builds. You could be a fire mage, easy enough, but the true fire mages get shielding on burn, they leave burn on the ground that spreads, you can explode it. Oh, and by the way, you also have flame creates poison, so you can lean into that at the same time. If it sounds too complicated, then you can simply build walls and turrets like you're back in Fortnite. They can generate shields while you're near them, and then all you have to do is play Ring Around the Rosie with the monsters and bosses until they all die. Somehow, there are enough cards and relics in this game to support basically every fantasy build you can think of, all while doing the DDR part against an enemy violin player on a Mega Man Battle Network grid. Again, all in real time. There's not a lot of story here, but I don't think anything besides the gameplay and fight sequences really matter. Alright, we're about halfway through the S tier games, and to be honest, I don't have a bonus S tier to just throw in here, but there are some action games in here that I didn't do for the tier list. I don't think I have enough hours, or maybe I just left them out, but those include Scourgebringer, Starved Providence, Veedotme, Bone Razor Minions, Nova Drift, and Crown Trick, all of which I think are like really good games. Not S tier, maybe, but I didn't have enough time to put them in this list. Maybe next time.
Wait, what? It's already getting into stuff?
Returnal is what I would call a campaign game with roguelike elements. It's so good though, it's really so good. I would have to give it an S tier and possibly even add it to my top games of all time. When you first load into Returnal, it's just a beautiful yet mysterious game. The fact that Celine herself, as a scientist, wants to know more about this world that she found herself in, you as the player want to do the same thing. This becomes easily the best carrot on the stick I've ever seen in a roguelike. You must find out what is happening in this game. Every breadcrumb of lore is a feast in and of itself. I literally had to stop playing the game on my live stream because I want to savor every minute of my gameplay. But look, I haven't really talked about the roguelike mechanics of this or its gameplay. Basically, here we have a third-person shooter, already kind of rare for a roguelike. It's also a bullet hell in third-person perspective, which is, again, very rare because it's very difficult to pull off. Your guns have a few augments to them when you find them, but they will level up with you and then show you their true form. And that is like a really cool way to do something besides more bullet or bigger bullet. The relics have effects that are mostly designed to buff Celine herself. For example, she may get double the use of consumables, or maybe her blade will let you break open stronger doors. Not really a busted build focus here, but rather, this run I can do things that I couldn't do in the last run. Then we have the parasites, which sound bad, but just like any leech, they may have a benefit if you look hard enough. Parasites might reduce the damage you deal, or cause you to get hurt on a fall, but then they'll boost your maximum health, or decrease the odds of you getting cursed. There's really no item in this game that's just a blind pickup, which in my opinion is the best part of any roguelike, decision making. It's hard for me to say anything really bad about this game. I only know that it is a campaign game first and foremost. If you're looking for your next 1,000 hour roguelike, this ain't it. But if you like immersing yourself into lore, this is a must-play roguelike for sure. And finally, perhaps even the moment you've been waiting for, Dead Cells. The action roguelite, Roguevania if you will. This game has it all. Best-in-class level design, distinct weapons to fill their own niches, alternate routing so you never feel like you're stuck doing the same run over and over again, and an excellent way to drip feed a little bit of lore without the story being the main carrot on the stick. This one gets a little bit of an unfair advantage as well. The game has been in development for basically 6 years with constant updates, and there's multiple DLCs as well. But consider loading up Dead Cells right now. You'll be shown a fully designed level with wall climbing and down slams, all of which was procedurally generated. Even in 2,000 hours, I still find room combinations that I've never seen before. Monsters are spread throughout the map, none too much in one place and none too little in one place. And the game doesn't really just spam one monster at you. Each map has its own unique threat, which some of you might be shaking your boots just thinking about it. Then, of course, there's the weapons. Each one created to do something that another weapon doesn't already do. On top of that, the devs put a lot of emphasis on how these weapons feel in the overall scheme of the game. It isn't important to simply have two pans attached by a string and call it a panchaku. They put a lot of emphasis on the attack timings, directional control, extending inputs for delayed combos, how the enemy reacts on the hit, all of that stuff. All things that honestly most devs don't even think about. All of these points together is definitely an S tier quality game. But hang on. I can't just gush about the game without some kind of flaws. So I'll go on record to say that the scroll system is probably the worst part of this game. If you don't know how it is, the scrolls you find dictate how much damage you deal by matching the weapon to the color of scroll that you've been pumping up this whole time. It doesn't do too well with hybridization, and it technically limits some of your creativity since the mutations, which are global buffs that you can equip, also scale off of scroll color. The game also doesn't have a very good infrastructure for modding, and when I think about some of the most played games of all time, modding helps to extend the game's life, which, by the way, the life of the game is technically unresolved. The teams that were working on Dead Cells split, one's working on Windblown, the other's working on Rogue Prince of Persia. None of that really matters about the rating for the game. I actually have another video called Everything Wrong with Dead Cells. If you want to focus on the good and bad of the mechanics of Dead Cells, I encourage you to check that out. Wow, okay, we did it. My first real tier list of roguelikes and roguelites that I've played. Well, some of them. I don't even know how many there were. Feel free to count the number and let me know in the comments. There's so many that I couldn't just dictate one video to all the ones I have. And some of them I decided they won't be in the list for whatever excuse I came up with. But hey, if this video does well, maybe with some likes, maybe with some subscribes, I could try to make more tier lists of all the other games I've played. Either way, thanks for sticking around for this long. You're S tier yourself just for coming along for the ride. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.